welcome to a mid-month book bash vlog. This is Friday, November the 10th. I had to look at the calendar. And it is our monthly reading weekend to try to get a lot more reading done than we have been. And I've been getting very little reading done the first couple of weeks of November. It's been extremely busy with work and a lot of other unexpected things that have popped up in my personal life. So I am going to use this weekend to get really focused. I do have today off. It is Veterans Day, our Veterans Day holiday, even though Veterans Day is tomorrow. So 3-day weekend, yay, always excited about that. I did finish a book last night, so I'm just going to briefly mention that I finished A Rebel in Gaza, Behind the Lines of the Arab Spring, One Woman Story. This is by Asmaa Al-Ghoul, and she writes with Salim Nassab, and it is translated by Mike Mitchell. And Asmaa is a journalist who is Palestinian, lives in Gaza, and this is her reflections and essays that she wrote for, like, I think almost a 10-year period. As you know, there's stuff in here about her childhood and then growing up through the different wars between Israel and Gaza, or not Gaza, but Hamas, or the leadership before Hamas, Fatah. And she's quite outspoken and has gotten into a lot of trouble because of her outspokenness. She's holding everyone accountable, not the citizenry, the regular citizens of Gaza, but Israel, Hamas, Fatah, the United States, everybody that she sees and complicit in holding down and oppressing the individual citizens of Gaza who are not free to make their own decisions about how to live their lives. So I thought this was really, really excellent. Like I said, I finished this last night. It is a buddy read with Britta Bowler, and I haven't done my final check-in with her yet, so I don't want to get into too much detail just yet. So that's something I finished yesterday. That was my first book completed for Nonfiction November. The only other book that I finished so far in November was on the 2nd. I finished my Anthony Trollope that I had been reading during Victober, the Prime Minister. I had less than 100 pages left to read when I started November. So that one really, I read it in November, but it doesn't really count in my mind. So what am I reading? I have 5 books here that I'm reading this weekend. My goal is to complete 2 of them. So the first one is a reread. This is my audiobook, Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Women, Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants by Robin Wall Kimmerer, who is Indigenous. And this book is so amazing and wonderful. I had already previously read it, as you can see from the tabs, and I thought this would be a great book to listen to on audio, and it is fantastic to listen to on audio. Kimmerer reflects about the differences and the similarities between Western ways of knowing science and Indigenous ways of knowing about the world. She ruminates on her raising her daughters as a single mom, as being a teacher, and what that means to be a professor in a university, but also be an Indigenous woman. She talks about traditions, Indigenous traditions, and it's just so beautifully written. There's so much wisdom in this book. There's so much wisdom for you to gain from reading this book. So highly recommend this either in physical form or as the audiobook. I am about 100 pages away from finishing this collection. This is Women on Nature, edited by Katharine Norbury. This is a collection of excerpts and poems and drawings all about nature written by women. All women from sort of the Eastern Atlantic archipelago, so Great Britain and the surrounds of that, and the UK, I should say, not just Great Britain, the UK and surrounds. And the writings are from over an expanded time period too, so from like early, several centuries ago to present day. I've already found some authors that I want to check out and read some more of their stuff. Some of the excerpts, I've added those books to my wish list. So lots in here to love. I've been really enjoying dipping in and out of this one. Like I said, about 100 pages left to go. The other one that I possibly could finish this weekend is Opinions by Roxane Gay. The subtitle is A Decade of Arguments, Criticism, and Minding Other People's Business. I love Roxane Gay. I love her essays. This is a collection of her essays written over the past decade. And it covers very many topics. I'm currently on the section talking about Black Lives Matter. And so I have had to, read an essay and set it down this is not a collection that I would say that you can just blow straight through. You do need to dip in and out because some of the topics that she's addressing are very distressing. But I love her commentary. I love how she writes about social issues. I love the wisdom that she brings to those, but also the humor and also the holding people's feet to the fire, much like Rebel in Gaza holds people's feet to the fire. Roxane Gay does the same thing. She's not going to let you off the hook for the crap that you're pulling. So I like that about her. So that one I could also potentially finish. These next two I will not finish because they're buddy reads. One more piece of nonfiction. It is this chunky monkey, Nixonland, The Rise of a President and the Fracturing of America by Rick Perlstein. This is a political history of the 1960s in America, framed around Richard Nixon's rise to power. And it is, again, really difficult topic to read about, but also, I've learned a lot already from it, and the parallels between what is being discussed in here and what's happening currently in our political life in the United States is really eye-opening to me. A lot of things that maybe we think are new to us because of Donald Trump are not new. They were happening during this time period with Nixon and with other politicians. So this is good. I will say it's really, really dense, and there are a lot of names. Like Perlstein is not leaving anyone out of this history. So it is. I'm reading this with Rachel. I'm buddy reading this with Rachel, and we're reading it one chapter a day. And the chapters are about 20, 25 pages long. And I think that's about the pace you would want to read this at because it is very dense. And then last but not least is a fiction novel. This is a book that I'm buddy reading with Sean the Book Maniac. This is Indians on Vacation by Thomas King. And Thomas King is another Indigenous author. I've read his nonfiction book, The Inconvenient Indian, which was fabulous. This book also has his humor, but in a fictional way. We're following a couple, middle-aged couple, Indian couple, Native American couple who are traveling in Europe. And they're currently at I've only read the first 3 chapters, and they're currently in Prague, I believe. And the husband in the family, his name is Bird, and his wife's name is Mimi. Bird doesn't necessarily know why they keep making these trips, and he's kind of like not, you can't really tell, is he into it or not really into it, because you're following his thoughts, you're in his mind, and he has a lot, he's kind of negative about a lot of the things, but Mimi's very enthusiastic about their travels and that they're broadening their horizons kind of thing, and that what they're doing on these trips that they've been taking around the world is trying to follow in the footsteps of one of their relatives who took the family's medicine bag and left it somewhere in Europe. They don't really know what he did with it, but it's no longer with the family. And so they're sort of trying to retrace his steps and figure out what's happened to this religious item. I shouldn't say religious, this cultural item from their family. So quite amusing so far, but I'm not really sure about the characters and what's going on with this marriage and what's going on with the 2 of these characters. So intrigued to read more. I have to read the next 3 chapters of this weekend. So that will be on the stack of reading for the weekend. So that's what's happening for the mid-month book bash. It's been a week, and I am so thankful that it is a long weekend. And I am really grateful to be having the time to sort of refocus myself on my reading, because I always mentally feel better when I am focused on my reading. So looking forward to getting that clarity again, hopefully this weekend. collection this morning while I drink my tea, and I just have to share this piece from the essay, "You're Disillusioned, That's Fine, Vote Anyway." And this spoke to me so much. So she says, we are reaping what has been sown from voter disillusionment, and we will continue doing so until enough people recognize what is truly at stake when they don't vote. A representative democracy is flawed, but it is the political system we must work within, at least for the time being. We have a responsibility to participate in this democracy, even when the politicians we vote for aren't ideal or a perfect match. Voting isn't dating. We are not promised perfect candidates. Voting requires pragmatism and critical thinking and empathy, and now, more than ever, intelligent compromise. I think that's so smart. She's such a smart person. It's about time I close out this mid-month Book Bash vlogs, considering it's Tuesday morning. So my weekend did not go as planned. It kind of went off the rails a little bit. I've had some family medical issues pop up. Nothing to worry about. Everything is going to be fine, but it definitely changed my plans in terms of what kind of a weekend I was going to have. But I did manage to meet my goal of finishing 2 of the books that I had started previous to the weekend, and I ended up reading about 600 pages. So that's not nothing. So let's talk about what I did finish. And the first thing I finished was this collection, Women on Nature, edited by Katharine Norbury. This is a collection of nature writing by women, all authors from the British archipelago. So North Atlantic, eastern side of the North Atlantic, basically, authors. And I really enjoyed dipping in and out of this. I found it to be quite soothing during a stressful time. These pieces, for the most part, were really lovely and really captured my imagination in terms of nature writing. There were, of course, as in any collection, some pieces that worked better than others for me. I did add quite a few books to my wish list from this, some new authors that I've never tried before. So that was fun. This book was originally crowdfunded, which is kind of neat. I don't think I've ever read anything that was crowdfunded. And in the back of the book, there's a list of all of the names of people who donated in order to get this book published. And the editor worked on it during COVID, during the pandemic. So that's an interesting provenance as well. I did appreciate at the back of the book, there were little blurbs for each author that's in the collection. And so you could look them up or read about other books that they've published or not, depending on whether they're published authors. Some of these folks are not published authors yet. So that was fun as well. So just an overall really nice reading experience to dip in and out of this for the last couple of weeks. So thank you to Britta again for this lovely, lovely gift. Then I finished a book that I just purchased in the month of November and immediately started reading. This is a collection of essays written by Roxane Gay called Opinions, A Decade of Arguments, Criticism, and Minding Other People's Business. I absolutely love Roxane Gay. She's one of my favorite authors of all time. So I knew I wanted to buy this book immediately. It came out last month, and I'm really glad that I did. All of these pieces were previously published for other venues. So some of them are part of her work that she does for the New York Times, other online publications or print publications that she writes for. So, and they run the gamut of really serious topics to quite pop culture-y, silly topics. And I just really love that. There's like 5 or 6 sections in here. I will say the first 2 sections were really heavy because they were about like political issues and Black Lives Matter and things like that. So really, some really tough stuff to read about. But then you get into the more cultural, pulp culture, entertainment type issues that are more on the humor side. She is quite sarcastic and witty, and I really love that about her voice. And then the last 2 sections, one of which was not my favorite. It was a collection of like 4 or 5 interviews that she had done for different publications with either actors, artists, musicians, those type of people. And I don't really love an interview type profile article, mostly because I don't know any of these people. I don't watch movies. I don't follow the current music. So a lot of these folks were like people I'd never heard of before. And so it's kind of hard to understand the context around them. And then the last section are a couple of choices that are from her help column. She writes a advice column for, I think, the New York Times, and those are really fun. She has a history where she really loved growing up like the Dear Abby type advice columns, and so this is her take on that genre, if you will. I just loved reading this. I had a really fun time, again, dipping in and out of this. She is just such a fantastic cultural critic. She is not afraid to call it like she sees it, and she's not afraid to hold people's feet to the fire, and I love that about her. I think she's fierce and funny and just a wonderful commentator on the current state of the world, particularly in the current state of these United States. Particularly as a Black woman, she has a very wide-eyed perspective on how things are in the world. And I think that I just really appreciate that perspective from her. So those are the two books that I finished during this mid-month book bash. As always, it allowed me to focus what little time that I did have on my reading and get myself sort of in the groove with my reading for the month. And I always appreciate that with mid-month book bash. So yeah, I'll leave it here. I hope you're all doing well and finding some great books to read. I'll talk to you later.